there. Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross and the Times chief sports reporter Martin Ziegler. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run you through the back pages before we chat. We'll start with The Guardian. They lead with the cricket controversy from day one of this third Ashes test. It should be better than that. England weigh up complaints after Snicko error spares Carey. And of course, that Alex Carey reprieve meant that he went on to make a century at a vital point in that match. And also, Celtic CEO hits out at the Salts as Lorwell exits Parkhead. And that comes on the same day that Wilfred Nancy loses his fourth straight game in charge. The Express back page covers that same Snicko error from day one. The headline reading, Taking the Mic. Rage against the machine after error gives Carey the edge. They also carry the EFL Cup win for Manchester City over Brentford. Cherky Chappie, Ryan Cherky, with an absolutely sensational opening goal as Pep Guardiola's side won that one 2-0. And the Star, I love a festive headline. Cherky and all the trimmings they go with in the Star. Ryan's cracker fills Pep full of festive cheer. Absolutely brilliant. Well played, the Star. OK, Martin, John, really good to see you. Thanks for joining us on Back Pages. Let's get straight to Man City. A 2-0 win over Brentford at the Etihad. A superb goal from Ryan Cherky. Some real momentum being built by this City side now. 6 wins in a row and they're through to the semi-finals, John.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jess. What a great headline. That absolutely sums it up. Absolute belter. The real hat tip to whoever wrote that. And I'll tell you, the headline nearly as good as the goal. The goal was absolutely fantastic. You know, ball falls to him on the edge of the box. Lovely sort of kind of swivel inside and smashes it into the top corner. Beautiful strike from a player who's really kind of coming to the fore now. He's improving. I saw him at Palace on Sunday. I was there for that game and he played ever so well then. And he's really finding his feet, I think, sort of providing assists, wonderful goals like tonight. It just feels that there's an ominous vibe about City. I really like City at the moment. I think they're playing ever so well. They're playing attacking, attractive football. Lots of changes tonight. They did have to sort of kind of rest and rotate, as a lot of teams do at this stage of the season, much more than the competition, in fact. But, we're lining ourselves up there for a really heavyweight semi-final lineup. This emphasises the importance of the competition, and which I think is only good for the Carabao Cup. But I love the way that City take it so seriously. Guardiola has done from day one. He's had a good tradition in the domestic trophies, of course. And, even with those changes, when you've got quality like that from Cherky, in what was frankly a little bit of a frustrating game up until that point, he announces himself on that stage, provides that little bit of class. And from that moment on, City were just in cruise control. Brilliant and significant win for them tonight. Yeah,
and Martin, City, of course, 8 times winners, but this is the first time that they've reached the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup since they won it in 2021. A good sign for them.
Yeah, and a bit of a stuffing for Brentford in the end, you could say. Sorry. But no, no Haaland, no problem. I mean, Brentford, they made some changes as well, didn't they? So it is an important competition for these clubs. Manchester City, there was a time that they seemed to win it every year, didn't they? But obviously, it's Guardiola's wants to, if you get that trophy in the bag, it kind of makes it easier for your other competitions. If you're chasing the Premier League, the Champions League, if you have that, I think he seems to believe that propels the club onwards for the rest of the season. So he will be taking it very, very seriously. I mean, I imagine for the semi-finals, we probably won't see Haaland on the bench, but they certainly did enough without him tonight.
Newcastle 2-1 winners over Fulham in the other quarter-final tie, John. And this was just what the Newcastle fans would have wanted after that flat performance, perhaps, you could say, against arch-rival Sunderland. They needed something to cheer about, and they got that.
Yeah, they did. They're the holders, of course, and were so good in this competition last season. it kind of galvanised the club. It meant the world to Newcastle winning that trophy, didn't it? It was the first trophy in however many years, and basically it really took the club to another level again. And I kind of think that's almost the point this season. Sometimes, when they haven't had those results, it has been almost sort of victims of their own success, if you like, because the expectations have been raised. Honestly, what a disastrous performance and result, and bizarre goal, in that defeat at Sunderland on Sunday. That was absolutely catastrophic for them. But a good response, a strong response. They've been good at home. They've been very reliable at St James's Park, and it's nice to see a kind of local boy made good in Miley, basically really sort of kind of getting the injury time winner. Absolutely fantastic for them. So it's been a strange season for Newcastle because they're capable of really good results and good performances, and yet very unpredictable and inconsistent, particularly away from home. But they will feel over the course of a two-legged semi-final, particularly because they've got one of those games at St James's, that there'll be a match for anyone, and they'll be determined, I think, to hold on to this competition. I think it's really big for Eddie Howe because basically, struggling at the moment to kind of get back into the top four places. Maybe they can sort of kind of, have a really good campaign in the Champions League. So these sort of trophies are really important for Newcastle, and the fans there. I love watching this game. Felt sorry for Fulham, fought their way back into it. It was an even game, but I must say overall, I do think Newcastle perhaps shaded it and deserved it.
Yeah, the Times covering this one as well. Just on the top right-hand corner of their back page, Wissa worth the wait, they say. And significant goals for both of Newcastle's goal scorers, Martin, and Johan Wissa getting his first goal on his first start for the club. And Lewis Miley, just 19 years of age, really coming into his own and showing what potential he has.
Yeah, and especially he was playing as a kind of makeshift right back, wasn't he, Lewis Miley? And he's only 19, so did brilliantly well, and that critical goal so late on. But yeah, Vista, I mean, lots of expectations. He's really struggled obviously with fitness and injuries, but they really, really could do with a top class striker to help them, share the load up front. And these kind of goals in this competition, they can be so important for a club, a striker, and for the rest of the season. So I think they will be so relieved after last weekend as well that they've managed to put that behind them, because I think it would have been a pretty difficult time for the club if they'd lost this one, being the holders as well.
Of course. OK, let's move on to the Ashes then, because most of the papers are covering the major controversy on the first day of this third test in Adelaide, as audio from the wrong stump microphone was used to review a not-out decision against the Australian wicketkeeper Alex Carey. OK, so it meant then that he escaped being given out. He went on, he was originally thought that England reviewed it when he was on 72. He went on to make a century, 106 runs, I believe. DRS, though, was brought in to eliminate these errors. It makes you wonder, John, whether England are just going to complain about this, how far they're going to take it. Nothing they can really do in that moment. The decision was a decision, but might they take it further in the aftermath?
Well, look, the Guardian are hinting so, aren't they? Basically, sort of kind of, strong sense there on their sort of front page of their pullout that basically they might do. I think it's very. I mean, what would you do? Can you replay the innings? I mean, what happens from there? And it's. Way up complaint. I don't know that you can sort of kind of, in any way sort of backtrack and sort of reprieve the runs or sort of regain it. I actually think what interests me was Alex Carey's reaction, sort of kind of acknowledging that, maybe I felt something, maybe it's something like a little feather. I mean, basically, he actually went on to say that, if I was given out, maybe I would have asked for a review to kind of check. But doesn't a player know? Doesn't he know? That's the point, I think, really. And so I think there has been quite a lot of conversation today, hasn't there, about maybe, should he walk, should he do the honourable thing? Because obviously at 72, then he passes his sort of kind of century, and it puts a totally different context and kind of sort of reality on the scoreline there from then on, and sort of kind of really steadies the ship. But I do think basically England will be annoyed about the lack of breakdown in communication and the technology, and then also there's always going to be a conversation about sportsmanship. should he have taken action? And I think personally, the kind of that's almost the more compelling argument and discussion. Because if he felt a little slither, well, that says to me that maybe he felt a little bit more than that.
Yeah, a wry smile from you there, Martin. Does good sportsmanship exist between England and Australia? Do we need a discussion as well about whether this technology, this SNCO technology, is fit for purpose?
I think it's one of the challenges with technology in sport, that you have to accept things are occasionally going to go wrong, and quite often it is operator error. I mean, do you remember there was one a few years ago when the goal line technology failed at Aston Villa? Sheffield United were denied a perfectly good goal, and that actually could have been hugely costly for their whole season. I think there's talk at the time, could they take legal action to claim for compensation about it? But that was sort of swiftly dismissed. And I think that's the same here about any potential complaint from England. Where would it go, as John rightly says? The whole sportsmanship, I mean, the cricket has changed, become much more professional, and that sort of desire to win has sort of taken over everything. It's very rare now that batsmen walk when they think even when they think that they might have touched the ball with the bat. So I don't think we can be too harsh on Carey, really.
Martin, John, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. We'll continue to discuss the top sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this on the back page of The Sun. The sidebar on the left, I want to draw your attention to that. Bruno's foreign wish list. The United captain is reportedly open to a move to Spain, Italy or Portugal. That's according to Catherine Walsh. Hello again, you're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to the Mirror's chief football writer, John Cross, and the Times chief sports reporter, Martin Ziegler. Now let's go to the story involving former Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich. And sometimes on Back Pages tonight, we have these stories that actually reach the front page of the newspapers. And that's exactly the case for this in the Times, your paper, Martin. Sir Keir Starmer, of course, issuing an ultimatum to the former Chelsea owner, Roman Abramovich. Prime Minister has given him a final chance, to transfer the £2.5 billion from the sale of the club to Ukraine. The demand was made during Prime Minister's questions. I'm really interested, Martin, as to why this has come about now, the timing of this, considering that the money's been frozen for quite a while.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I'm not exactly sure why the government have come out with this now. Roman Abramovich is, though, going to defy them. He's going to say he still stands by the original agreement, which he says was the money has to go to all the victims of the war in Ukraine and not just on projects within Ukraine itself. That has been the stalemate so far. That still exists, and I think he's been given until March the 17th to hand over the money, or the government says he'll go to court. And my understanding is he says, well, bring it on, we'll go to court. Yeah.
Do you think this puts the required pressure on him, John, on Abramovich to do what the government's asking?
Well, I mean, as Martin had just alluded to there, I don't know that he's got anything to lose, really. That's the problem. That basically, yes, he could be taken to court, but I don't really see why he, would do anything, different in that time. If that is his view, then his pledge was that basically the money should go to both sides of the war, if you like, victims on both sides of the war, and that has been his stance. Then basically that has been his view. Obviously, the UK government stance was basically it should go, to Ukraine's side, if you like. So it's a different setting. It's awkward, isn't it? It's a difficult and very uncomfortable conversation, because we shouldn't forget the circumstances of this. That Abramovich was dealt with sanctions. Chelsea were then given a sort of a special license then to be sold, which then, if you remember, took a while to go through, and was a long, drawn-out process, very fraught, very difficult. I think subsequent reporting has suggested and told us that actually Chelsea were a club on the brink, and it was really, really difficult time for the club. And a lot of Chelsea fans will have very happy memories of Roman Abramovich and his reign. And, so it's lots of different angles and viewpoints, from this. But Fundamentally, the UK government have absolutely got to stand. I mean, you couldn't. Sir Keir Starmer, when you heard him talk today, couldn't have been stronger in his view. I'm sure they'll pursue it, and I have to say, from my perspective, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. But I can't see Abramovich backing down, and it just feels a difficult, awkward conversation, which I think, by the looks of it, will go to court.
Yeah, you wonder who might blink first in this one, something that we'll keep an eye on here on Back Pages tonight. OK, let's go to The Sun now and talk Manchester United. They carry the headline about Bruno Fernandes, the captain. Bruno's foreign wish list. Just on the left-hand sidebar there, story by Catherine Walsh. Bruno Fernandes has rocked Manchester United again after revealing he would be open to a move to Spain, Italy or Portugal. It seems after that interview that he did, Martin, about saying that the club perhaps did want to sell him in the summer, it seems like he's fair game for every country, every nation looking for a decent midfielder.
I mean, he's talking like somebody, who obviously hurt by what happened in the summer, and maybe he's sort of lashing out a bit now, getting his own back a bit. And he's not the first player to say, "Oh yes, I'd like to play in a different league, have different challenges, play in my home country's league again, go to Italy." And I just think it's a sort of thing that can perhaps make him into a little bit of a stronger position when he's dealing with people at Manchester United. If he's even contemplating, is he going to have a new deal there, or what's going to happen in the future? In a way, it's not a bad tactic to sort of just let the club know that you do have other options and other ideas.
OK, I think it's been about 30 seconds since I've spoken about Liverpool. So let's go on to Arne Slot, shall we? A man of the moment who everyone is talking about at the moment with Liverpool's poor run of form, but also the fallout from Mo Salah. In the back of your paper, John, Graham Souness has been talking about Arne Slot. And I wonder, what was his take then on the aftermath of the Mo Salah saga and how well he's handled himself, the player and the media?
Well, Graham Souness is such a good talker, isn't he, really? But, he really sort of kind of wide-ranging interview and sort of words on this today and sort of kind of, really having a go at Mo Salah, saying, take a look at it, yourself in the mirror. It shouldn't all be all about you. But very big takeaway that saying, despite that and despite kind of the challenges made on Arne Slot, he's adamant, Graham Souness, basically, in his belief that Slot still retains the support of the players and the dressing room, and that hasn't been affected. It really sort of making the point that basically not for a minute, he says, does he believe that he's lost the players. They're still with him. They've still responded well. And actually, I think that's borne out in a couple of good results, isn't it? First you got Inter Milan away where Salah wasn't there. And then at the weekend, even though Salah comes on, it's still quite a hard fought victory against Brighton, and they come through. So I actually think it's been, now Salah's obviously gone away to AFCON. So I think I agree with Souness, really. I think Slot had an amazing year last year, winning in his first season in the Premier League. It was an absolutely fantastic achievement. And I do think it's been a real test, with the background of Jota, with sort of kind of, new players and now Salah. And I think that's the danger, I think, isn't it? When players kind of, listen, we're journalists, we like to hear from players, especially when they say interesting things. So I'm not about to tell them to shut up, but that is the danger when Salah speaks out. It's the danger perhaps when Bruno speaks out, and basically, but they generally do it with an agenda. And basically, generally, it's kind of to strengthen their own position, if you like. And I think for Liverpool and Slot to ride out that storm and come out the other side, and I think basically if they can sort of gain some momentum from here, then I think that'll be, I think it must go down as a real win-win for Slot's man management.
Yeah, Martin, John mentions momentum there. There's back-to-back wins now for Liverpool. We saw Mo Salah back involved in that Brighton game, got an assist as well. Do you think perhaps now that it's drawn a line under the whole controversy? Mo Salah's gone away to Egypt, to AFCON. Are Liverpool moving on now?
Well, it remains to be seen, doesn't it? I think what's going to happen when he comes back is the big thing. I still think there's a massive unknown here and a sort of uncertainty, which I don't think is going to be helpful for Liverpool. While the future of Salah is still undecided, and even though he's going to be AFCON, he's not going to be. It's not a question: is he going to be playing it every week? Is he not for the next few weeks? I think it's really tricky, and I think if they don't, if he does go to Saudi Arabia, for example, I think that will be a challenge also for Slot, because he's going to have to sort of deal with the fact that this is the man who was such a hero to those fans for so many years, and he's going to be without him, and having left under difficult circumstances. So it's not going to be easy either way.
It will not be, but he's handled it so far. OK, EFL Cup semi-final draw has been made. Chelsea will play either Arsenal or Crystal Palace. Newcastle will host Manchester City. What an interesting matchup those will be. Those will be in the EFL Cup semi-finals. And I mentioned Arsenal there, John. You've done a really good piece on Victor Gyökeres. What's your take then on the Arsenal forwards' form so far? I suppose Arsenal have been waiting a while for him to reach his best, haven't they?
They really have. They've had to be patient. Listen, I actually thought he was getting into his groove, but when he got that hamstring injury, he did it during a game at Burnley when he'd scored and he was playing well, leading the press, and he felt like he was really getting into something. And I think at the heart of that, to be fair to him, is a lot of match fitness and sharpness. He obviously missed a huge chunk of pre-season because of the ongoing transfer saga. And he has looked at times to me very heavy, leggy, clunky even. And I think perhaps the worst example of that was against Wolves on Saturday, when, he's probably the pick of a bad bunch, really. It was a really below par performance. But I do think Arsenal, there was so much clamour to sign a number 9. They finally do it for a lot of money, 64 million quid. It is absolutely prolific for Sporting, not just in the Portuguese league, but actually good returns in the Champions League too, which is where I think they judged him. And they were crying out for this player, and I think so much pressure and expectation on him. But also Arsenal, trying to make the point in this piece was that Arsenal wanted a striker for now, who could score goals straight away to help them win trophies, to get them over the line. They didn't want to do a younger player like a Sesko who's developing. They wanted to do a here and now. And I think, therefore, that is the disappointment. He clearly looks a player who's going to take time to adapt to English football and indeed the Premier League.
OK, Martin, we haven't got long, but I just want to ask you about the increased World Cup prize pot that carried in the back of the Times. Record World Cup prize pot, they say. It's up 50%. This is good news, isn't it?
Yeah, although you can say it is up 50%, but then the number of teams is up 50% as well, and ticket prices are up a lot more than 50%, and that is what has caused so much controversy. So it's I think it's one that another challenge for FIFA to have to try and explain why they're charging so much for tickets, but actually the prize money isn't really going up that much.
Yeah, and a good news story after FIFA's been under some heavy pressure in recent days. Martin Ziegler, John Cross, thank you for joining us on Back Pages. Pleasure to have your company. If you missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. The show's also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages or Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.